The Others. In The Others, Grace Stewart lives in a massive, creepy mansion in Jersey, surrounded by an ominous fog. So, of course, it's haunted. Just not in the way you'd think. It's 1945, and Grace's husband never came home from the war. She's alone, raising 2 children with a rare condition that makes sunlight burn their skin. So the rules of the house are absolute. Every curtain must stay shut, every door must be locked before the next one opens, and the entire place must remain in near total darkness. Then 3 strangers show up at the door, looking for work. A housekeeper, a gardener, and a mute maid. Grace hires them immediately, because apparently the fog and the empty halls weren't unsettling enough on their own. Immediately, strange things starts happening. Footsteps with no source, a piano playing by itself, and doors that open when they should be locked. Her daughter, Anne, insists that a little boy named Victor keeps visiting her while she sleeps. Oh, and she sees the rest of his family all around the house. So Grace tears the house apart looking for intruders. She finds no one, just an old photo album full of pictures of corpses. Perfectly normal household item. By now, Grace is convinced the house is haunted. She asks the servants to search for tombstones on the property, while she runs through the forest to find a priest. And then her husband walks out of the woods. They go inside while the gardener casually covers a couple of tombstones with leaves to hide them. Her husband stays a few days, says very little, and then he just leaves again, insisting he has to return to the front, even though the war is over, and the terror just escalates. Suddenly, the curtains vanish, and an old woman appears wearing her daughter's communion dress, speaking in her daughter's voice. Grace attacks her, and realizes that she has attacked her own child. Something is clearly very wrong, and it does not get any better when Grace finds photographs of her 3 servants, dated to 1891, taken after their deaths. The servants are ghosts, but they are not the ones haunting the house. Grace is. In a chilling climax, Grace stumbles into a room where a group of living people, Victor's family, are holding a seance. For the first time, we see the perspective of the living. To them, Grace is a screaming, white-faced banshee. Grace has been the monster in someone else's ghost story the entire time. The seance reveals that after her husband disappeared in the war, Grace suffered a complete mental collapse. In a moment of despair, she smothered her 2 children with pillows before shooting herself. By the end, the living family flees, terrified of the angry spirit living there. The purgatory-like fog stays, and Grace and her children remain in the mansion, because it's theirs and they're not going anywhere. The ones who walk away from Omelas. The author, Ursula K. Le Guin, asks you to imagine the best possible utopia you can think of. She is remarkably flexible with the details. Non-habit-forming drugs? Sure. Free food and music, dancing, flute-playing children, and majestic horses with braided manes? Lovely. And if your version of paradise requires high-tech train tracks and semi-religious orgies, then go ahead and add those too. Omelas is exactly what you want it to be. There are no kings here, no slaves or secret police. Just pure human flourishing. Then, Le Guin adds one teeny-weeny small detail. Under one of those beautiful buildings, there is a basement. In that basement, there is a tiny locked room with no window. And inside that room is a malnourished child sitting in its own filth. Naked, neglected, and terrified of the mops in the corner. All the adults in Omelas knows that the child is there. That's the whole deal. The city's happiness, the perfect utopian society, depends entirely on this one child living in misery. It is never really explained why. That's just how it is. And the terms are absolute. You cannot help the child, comfort it, or even speak to it. The moment you do, the perfection of Omelas falls apart. The citizens of Omelas are told about the child when they reach adolescence. And when they learn this, they are devastated. They cry, they rage. And then, slowly, they make peace with it. Some make sure to live their best life, now knowing what it cost. Others rationalize that the child is already too broken to be saved anyway. They convince themselves that the happiness of thousands outweighs the agony of one. But some people, after seeing the child through the door, just leave. They walk out of the city alone, through the gates, across the fields, into the dark. And they don't come back. They walk toward the mountains, into a darkness that Guin admits she cannot even describe. It's possible it doesn't even exist. Walking away doesn't save the child, because it can't be saved. The ones who walk away from Omelas leaves the only perfect world they've ever known for a place that might not even exist, choosing potential nothingness over a guaranteed paradise built on a single victim. Le Guin isn't telling you which choice is right. She's asking something harder. If you can't fix it and you can't unknow it, what do you do with that? And before you say, oh yeah, I would like, totally leave too. Just remember that you are almost certainly seeing this video on a device built with cobalt mined by child labor. And the chocolate I'm gobbling up right now while writing this is most likely harvested through slave-like labor. We've already made our choice. We are the citizens who stayed. Brokeback Mountain. In 1963, two cowboys are hired to herd sheep on a mountain in Wyoming for the summer. They drink, they work, and they fall in love. And then they spent the next 20 years pretending they didn't. In the movie, Ennis Del Mar and Jack Twist are quiet, practical men, not exactly the type to sit around discussing feelings. But that summer on Brokeback Mountain becomes the most alive either of them will ever feel. When it ends, they both go home and do what men in 1960s Wyoming are supposed to do. Marry women, have children, and build lives that conforms to what the world expects of them. It does not work, obviously. But Ennis cannot let himself want what he wants, and there is a reason for that. As a boy, his father took him to see the bodies of two local men who had been tortured and killed for being with each other. His father did not need to explain the lesson. Ennis understood it perfectly. Jack dreams of them having a ranch together, a home, something real. But Ennis always finds a reason to refuse, his daughters, his work, his responsibilities. But really, it is fear. Fear of what the world would do to them. So, the years go by, with them settling for scraps. A few fishing trips, a few meetings once or twice a year that has to carry the full weight of everything their hearts desire. Around them, their marriages collapse, and they live only half-lives. And then, Jack dies. His wife says it was a freak accident. A tire exploded, and the rim hit him in the face. But as she speaks, Ennis imagines something else. Jack being beaten to death with a tire iron. It is the ending Ennis always feared, the one that haunted him from childhood, and the one that ensured they never shared a life together. Whether that truly happened almost doesn't matter. When Ennis visits Jack's parents, hoping to scatter his ashes on Brokeback Mountain, Jack's father refuses. Then, in Jack's childhood bedroom, Ennis finds the shirt he thought he lost on the mountain, carefully kept for years, folded inside one of Jack's own shirts like a secret embrace. In the final scene, Ennis lives alone in a trailer. He hangs the shirts together, now reversed, beside a postcard of Brokeback Mountain and whispers, "Jack, I swear." He is left mourning not just Jack, but the life they were both denied, and the life he was too afraid to choose. The Sopranos. The Sopranos had a pretty dark ending. Literally. The screen just cut to black so abruptly that millions of people thought their cable had died. In 2007, HBO aired the finale, and instead of a big operatic death scene, the show ended with the family sitting in a diner. A very, very long parking scene and 10 seconds of black silence. People were furious, confused, and probably smacking the remote. Now, I'm not going to unpack every nuance of The Sopranos here, because it's one of the greatest shows ever made, and also a bottomless pit of therapy, gabagool, panic attacks, and murder. But quick recap. Tony Soprano spent 6 seasons balancing his role as a suburban father with his position as a boss in the New Jersey Mafia. Waste management business. Please don't hurt me. Where was I? Oh yes, Tony lies, cheats, kills, manipulates, self-sabotages, and slowly destroys almost every relationship that ever mattered to him. By the final episode, Tony has technically won. He survived the brutal war with the New York waste management family. Tony's family is still around, and he is sitting in a diner waiting for onion rings with Don't Stop Believin' playing on the jukebox. But look at what that victory cost him. His nephew Christopher is dead. His brother-in-law, Bobby, is dead. His second-in-command, Silvio, is effectively gone. His therapist, Dr. Melfi, has cut him off, and his uncle Junior has lost his mind to dementia. The old crew is reduced to scraps, and it's basically just Paulie Walnuts that still hangs around, hilarious as always. Tony is still alive, yes, but the world around him has been hollowed out. And now he sits in the diner in the final scene. The bell on the diner door keeps ringing. Every time it opens, he looks up. A man in a members-only jacket goes to the bathroom like this is the Godfather. Meadow, his daughter, struggles to park for what feels like 100 years. The tension is absurd. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And then, the door opens, the bell rings, and bang! Just kidding. The screen just goes black. The big theory, and the one David Chase, the director, has strongly nudged people toward over the years, is that Tony gets whacked right there. We have spent the whole series inside Tony's perspective, and then, at the moment of his death, his perspective simply ends. The music literally stops. There is nothing. It's even foreshadowed earlier in the series. You probably don't even hear it when it happens. The Metamorphosis. One morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin. That's the opening line of Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis, and it's only downhill for Gregor from this point on. Gregor, a mild-mannered traveling salesman, is transformed into a giant insect. No explanation, no reason. And it doesn't really matter. What matters is how everyone around him reacts. His mother faints, his father shouts, and his sister cries. All normal, rational human reactions to finding out your loved one has turned into a monster. And then there's Gregor, stressing about missing work, because Gregor is still in there. He understands everything but is unable to speak, trapped in a body that is no longer his. And he worries about his job, because Gregor is the breadwinner of the family. His entire identity is built on sacrifice. He works a soul-crushing job to support his family, and dreams only of sending his sister to the conservatory. After the metamorphosis, the people he once loved and provided for turn on him. He is no longer a source of income. Now, he is a financial liability. His father attacks him. His mother faints at the very sight of him. And his sister, who initially tries to take care of him, eventually turns cold and calls him a monster too. Gregor becomes a prisoner in his own home. He can't eat regular food, so he stops eating. He spends his days crawling up the walls and looking out the window. No longer seen as a person, he's neglected and left to rot. His final moments are spent alone, unloved, and discarded like trash. When he finally dies, the family takes a walk. They feel relieved. Gregor Samsa's life is a metaphor for alienation, exploitation, and the quiet horror of being unwanted. On the Beach. On the Beach is an apocalyptic novel written by Nevil Shute. It's 1963, and a nuclear war has scrubbed the Northern Hemisphere clean. Albania, of all places, launched a nuclear strike on Italy. Egypt decided to hit Israel. America and Britain hit Egypt in retaliation. Then NATO and the Soviets went at each other, and China got involved. And then it was over. The book hasn't even really started yet, and everyone is already dead. Everyone in the north, anyway. Australia has 8 months left. The radiation is drifting south on the wind, a slow but impending doom. There's nothing to fight. You can only wait. The Australian government hands out suicide pills, free of charge, so people can choose their moment. And yet, weirdly enough, people wait in the most painfully civilized way imaginable. Somehow, life just continues. People go to work. They still tend to their garden, they drink, maybe a bit more than usual. They debate on whether to move the fishing season up, and farmers fret about whether the rabbits will survive mankind. One of the central characters, Commander Dwight Towers, is an American submarine captain living in Melbourne, still speaking of his wife and children back in the United States, as if they might somehow still be there waiting for him. Everyone knows they are almost certainly dead. He knows it too. But admitting it would make it real. There is a brief glimmer of hope when a strange Morse code signal is detected coming from Seattle. Maybe someone survived. Maybe there is still a pocket of life somewhere in the ruined north. So a submarine is sent to investigate, and the answer is almost laughably cruel. The signal is just a window shade hitting a telegraph key in the wind. From there, the book becomes a slow farewell. A man teaches his wife how to kill herself and their baby when the radiation reaches them. Another spends his final days restoring a Ferrari, because what else is there to do? And in the end, no miracle arrives. Commander Towers takes the submarine out to sea to scuttle it, a naval officer to the end. On land, families vanish quietly into their homes, never to emerge again. It's the dignified end of civilization. The end of the whole mess. This is a short story where Stephen King proves that he only needs a couple of pages to ruin your day. In this one, he uses a genius with good intentions. Bobby Fournoy wants to save the world, which, as it turns out, is the most dangerous thing a genius can attempt. While mapping violent crime statistics across Texas, Bobby notices something strange. The small town called La Plata has never in its entire history recorded a single act of violence. No murders or assaults, not even a bar fight, which is odd since, it's Texas. It turns out that a naturally occurring chemical unique to La Plata's water supply suppresses aggression in anyone who drinks it, calms them right down. Works on animals too. Bobby thinks he has found the cure for war, hatred, and the general urge to blow each other up. And since the world is on the brink of nuclear disaster, that sounds pretty good. So Bobby isolates it and concentrates it. And with the help of his brother, Howard, they find a volcano in Borneo scheduled to erupt and seeds it with the chemical. And it worked. Millions of tons of ash carry the chemical into the atmosphere, and within months, global hostilities collapse. The aggression just drains out of humanity. And then he finds out why medicinal companies spend years and years on clinical trials. Turns out there is a slight side effect with the chemical. It slowly destroys the brain. People become passive, sure, but also forgetful and confused. Then childlike, then helpless. Bobby dosed the entire human race with a dementia spray, effectively dooming mankind in the process. The story is narrated by Howard in his journal, and as the pages go on, you start to notice the typos. As the chemical rots his brain, his writing rots with it. The sentences get shorter, his grammar fails, and his spelling devolves into gibberish. His last entries are barely words at all, and we, the readers, can only speculate on what happened to humanity. Melancholia. The movie is about a planet named Melancholia crashing into Earth in depression. It's also the movie where Lars von Trier managed to get himself unofficially exiled from Cannes after an extremely awkward press conference. The film opens by spoiling its own ending. In slow motion, we see the rogue planet drifting toward Earth. The world ends, and it's beautiful. The story is split into two halves, each centered on a sister. The first follows Justine on her wedding night. On paper, everything is perfect. A castle, wealth, a loving husband, a carefully planned celebration. And yet, Justine is clearly unwell. She keeps slipping away from the party, unable to perform happiness. She quits her job during the reception, cheats on her husband, and effectively dissolves her marriage before the night is over. Above it all, the strange blue planet glows in the sky. The second half follows Claire, as Melancholia approaches Earth. Scientists and Claire's husband insist it will pass safely. Claire panics anyway, and as it becomes clear that the planet will collide with Earth, the roles between the sisters reverse. Claire unravels completely, but Justine, meanwhile, grows calm. With no future, no more expectations, and no roles left to perform, her depression loosens its grip. The end of the world feels honest to her, so she bathes in the planet's blue light. Claire tries to flee after her husband cowardly killed himself, abandoning his family. Justine, on the other hand, builds a small magic cave of sticks for Claire's son. In the end, all three hold hands and wait for the doom together. When Melancholia finally collides with Earth, Claire panics and lets go. But Justine does not. All of them are engulfed in the sea of flames we saw in the beginning. Alright, that was yet another bunch of darkest endings in fiction. Let me know in the comments which ending you think is the darkest and why. Thanks for watching. Cheers.